This is the review notes number 3. We're going to focus on distributive property. The distributive property was mentioned briefly at the end of review 2, so we'll see that come back into our discussion. So distributive property, what does it mean? Well, if we have these two terms, these two expressions rather, it has a times the parentheses, and in the parentheses you have an addition problem or a subtraction problem. The distributive property would say take the a and take it times b, and then also take it times c. That would be the same for the lower expression. And when you do so, you get this term. So a times b is ab, a times c is ac. And again, there's an addition problem in there, so that's why the plus is there. And then a times b again is ab, a times c is ac, but now a subtraction. That is the distributive property. Very important property, and a lot of people get that messed up. So a good property to be very comfortable with. A term. This was discussed in review 1. What is a term? Well, it's a number, variable, or product of a number and variable in an expression. Now let's take a look at this example here. We have an expression, and it is x squared plus 3x minus 5. Now it's an expression because there's no equal sign, but notice that none of them are like terms. They are all different. We discussed that in review 1 also. So this expression is said to have 3 terms because they are all considered unlike terms. If you pay closer attention, you'll notice, and I've mentioned this briefly in the previous lessons, that when you put a number with a variable, you have x as being the variable, but the 3 is officially called the coefficient. It's the constant part of a term, so the numerical part. So 3x, the coefficient of that would be 3. If I give you x squared, the coefficient, well, it would be the number in front, but there's no number, but we don't have to write it because it's a 1. So when there's nothing in front, it has a value of 1. Let's work on our distributive property. Okay, so let's first of all remember that even if the 4 is on the right side of the parentheses or at the beginning, we still distribute to get rid of parentheses. That would give us 9x plus 4 times 3, which is 12, and then 4 times a negative x. Remember, this is like a negative 1x, so 4 times negative 1 is negative 4x. Now here we start to put things together. Do you see any like terms? Well, the 9x and the negative 4x are. So I can put them together and we would get a 5x. The 12 does not go along with the 5x because it does not have an x with it. So those two are not considered to be like terms. That is our final simplified expression. Next, notice the 6 is on the left side, but notice it's a negative 6. So I'm going to take that, all of it, and take it times a, and take it times negative 7. Alright, so we have 2a, which is out front waiting to see what happens. Negative 6 times a. Again, this is like a 1 in front of it, so negative 6 times 1 is a negative 6, and then we have the a with it now. So negative 6 times a is negative 6a. If we take negative 6 times negative 7, notice that's a negative times a negative, which makes that a positive 42. Alright, now we do have like terms here, so if I put those two together, I would have a 2a minus 6a. So 2 minus 6 is negative 4a plus 42. Alright, C, we're going to distribute 6n. Now this is not just a number, but a number n letter. So we got to take it times both, just as we did before. Notice the negative 10n squared is not in the parentheses, so we don't have 6n deal with that one. So now we have a 6n times a negative 2n. So 6 and negative 2 gives us negative 12. N times n is n squared. So very important to understand that property. When we multiply variables together, if they're the same variable, the power changes. Then we have 6n times a positive 1. Well, that's nice. Now we want to look at this after we distribute and say to ourselves, are there any like terms again? So again, we look closely at that, and we know that to be like terms, we have to have the same variable and the same exponent. So they all have n's, but only the ones with the n squareds are considered like terms. So I can put those together, and it's a negative 12 minus 10. So negative 12 minus 10 is a negative 22n squared. And then the 6n is still by itself. And this is considered combining distributing and then combining all of our like terms. Alright, here we solve by, again, there's two things we could do here. One, we could divide both sides by negative 4 first, but since we're working on distribution, we'll go that method, which means we're going to distribute first, which gives us 80 equals negative 4 times 1 is a negative 4. Negative 4 times a positive 3k is a negative 12k. Negative 4 times a positive 3. Now, where's the variable that we're trying to solve for? Now notice it's an equation now, so we're not just simplifying, we are solving. So we can go one more step and say, how do we get k by itself? So again, when we are undoing an equation, we do addition subtraction first, and this is multiplication here, so we'll do that last. We look to the sign in front of the number, in this case minus 4, so we're going to add 4 to undo it. Alright, that gives us 84 equals negative 12k. Now we can undo the division or the multiplication by dividing by not just 12 but negative 12. We want to take it all with us. And that leaves us with k equals 84 divided by negative 12. And that would be negative 7. Again, positive divided by negative is a negative. Alright, next one. Again, we have to distribute first. Now notice what we have here. We have a negative 8 minus and then the parentheses. Now there's not a whole lot of room there, but I'm going to try and squeeze this in here. This is a negative 1 in front of that parentheses. So I'm going to distribute that negative 1. And let's see what happens. So I have negative 8. A negative 1 times a negative 2 is a positive 2. Negative times negative is positive. Negative 1 times a positive 3n is a negative 3n. And then the rest is the same. So I distributed a negative. Very important to understand how that works. It's a negative 1 being multiplied times everything inside the parentheses. So now before we even solve, we should ask ourselves, are there any like terms? On the one side we have negative 8, a positive 2, and negative 3n, so these two are considered like terms. Put that together, and we get negative 6. And those are the only pieces that have like terms. So now we can go ahead and solve. Start by asking ourselves, where's the variable? And let's start solving for it. So again, we undo addition and subtraction. We have a 6, a negative 6, which we would look to the left of the 6, which is negative, and we would know that that means we need to add 6 to both sides to move it, which gives us negative 3n equals a negative 9. Divide both sides now to undo the times. This is a times negative 3, so we divide by negative 3. And then our final answer is n equals negative divided by negative is positive, so we get 3. Alright, now here's the examples that we kind of ended on review 2. So if we look closely at this, we have a proportion. Alright, so we would cross multiply. Now that's not a big deal, but we have to be careful about what that looks like. I'm going to say 7 times 10, and 8 times m plus 10 looks like this. Now that's where our distribution comes into play. On review 2, I think I tried this method, but it was only a 1 that I was distributing. Now I have an 8. So a 1 is not a big deal, but an 8 definitely is. So 7 times 10 is 70. 8 times m is 8m. 8 times 10 is 80. Solve for m. So I'm going to subtract 80. And we get 8m equals negative 10. Divide by 8. Divide by 8. Now, m equals then a negative 10 over 8, which reduces down to a negative, so if they're 2 goes into both, so negative 5 over 2. It can be written as that, or it can be written as a proper fraction, so negative 2 goes into 5 2 times with 1 left over. Or you could write it from your calculator and get negative 2.5. Oops, did anybody catch that? Again, it didn't sound right, so I had to back up. This is not correct. I got to back this up here. This 2 should not be a 2. Hopefully you saw that and we're getting upset with me. Hopefully not too upset. So if I said 2 goes into both, then it should be negative 5 fourths. Sorry about that. Going too fast. Alright, so again, that's improper. Proper would be 1 and 4 goes into 5 once with 1 left over. Or you can just write negative 1.25. Alright, next question. Again, cross multiply. And I have 8 times 3 equals, I'm going to write this in different order so you know that it's still the same process, times 2. Alright, so we distribute. Doesn't matter if it's in front or on the back side. So we have 24 equals 2 times x is 2x. 2 times the negative 5 is negative 10. There are no like terms at the moment, so we will now solve. We will do the plus 10 first, which gives us 34 equals 2x. Divide by 2. And x equals 17. And this ends the guided notes for review number 3.